Hey, what's going on, folks? Sorry I've been slacking in the video department. I haven't really put out a video because of Golden Week, but I promise I'll have that Kaiju number 8 video out for you guys pretty soon. Though today, we have Vigilantes Chapter 101 to go over, and this one is clearly the chapter that is more or less the penultimate chapter before our climax. So if you're a regular around these parts, you know the drill. If you haven't read Chapter 101 of My Hero Academia Vigilantes, be sure to subscribe to the channel and go read it, and then head on back, because we're gonna get spoilery. And if you want to be a part of each video's premiere here on the channel and join the rest of the regulars here at the bar, be sure to hit that notification bell. That way, you never miss a premiere. But enough of that. It's Vigilantes Week, people. We got a lot to go over. Let's hit the bar. Alright, welcome to the bar, everyone. So, Chapter 101 is the chapter in which that we can finally say that Koichi has mastered the flying aspect of his quirk. It's no longer slide and glide, he has gone full-on gravity manipulation. My Hero Academia Vigilantes has been ramping up to this particular moment. 100 chapters ago in Chapter 1, when we see him soar through the sky to save Popstep and just plead that one day he would be able to fly, this is the moment right here. This is the chapter. But in addition to that, this is also the chapter that we bid farewell to the heroes that were in pursuit of Koichi, as now it's time for the Vigilante of Naruhara to make his own legend. So let's stop my ramblings here before I get a little too into it, and let's just head over to the wall and break down Chapter 101, shall we? Alright, so Chapter 101 starts off with the hero team up between Eraserhead and Koichi in full swing. Now if you remember, in Chapter 100, at the very end, Eraserhead told Koichi that he needs to get back to the hospital and help the cops and protect Popstep. And the chapter picks up literally right after that. And after being cornered by a litany of bomber villains, he clings to a wall and actually questions even leaving. And that's when Eraserhead, the pro hero, tells him that he doesn't need some rank amateur prattling on about the situation. So Eraserhead throws him back into the game and reminds Koichi that there's somewhere that he needs to be right now. And I love Koichi's face right here because it's the face of realization. From the beginning, Eraserhead always had that intention that if the shit hit the fan, he would defend Koichi and have him make a break for it. And for the most part, Koichi is realizing this fact right now. And the way that Eraserhead kind of speaks to Koichi in this scene, it lets us know that Eraserhead certainly does consider Koichi to be among his first students. I mean, when you think back, the reason why Koichi is the man that he is today is because of Knuckle Duster, Captain Celebrity, and Eraserhead. Koichi himself has inspired 3 pro heroes to take their own future into consideration and change their own situations. All 3 of them, for the most part, were grasping at straws in different directions, and the one person to grab them, shake them, and make them realize that there's more to life than what they're doing is Koichi. Granted, it was in Koichi's own unique way of doing things, but he gave Captain Celebrity the means to find out what his true meaning of being a hero was. Knuckle Duster was an aimless drunk before he met Koichi. And if there wasn't a Koichi, there would be no spark that ignites inside of Knuckle Duster to create the persona called Knuckle Duster. And as for Eraserhead, if Koichi never saves his life against Octoid and never picks up that stray cat, we never get the flashback with Shirakumo, and we never get Eraserhead's chance to heal. Because their first team up was the catalyst that Eraserhead needed to realize that, yeah, he's a fantastic teacher, and that the words of his best friend Shirakumo weren't in vain. But if Koichi is never there, he never becomes the teacher that teaches all the kids at UA. And prior to even meeting Koichi, those 3 heroes were established in their own right, but all it took was some 20-year-old vigilante to remind them that once upon a time, every single one of them were standing in his shoes. So the next part of the chapter, I would hope, had every single one of us like this. Because when Koichi gets cornered by those bomber villains and slides up the wall and launches himself up, we see this. His normal thruster begin to power up, but this time it launches him forward. Like, this is not the normal slide and glide that we're used to. He straight up rocket boosts. And to the point where even Eraserhead looks up and laments that no matter where he goes, it seems like he's always responsible for some random kid. But this time, his words did something to Koichi. It took his head out of his quirk. Now, a quick little bit of backstory about our boy. Now, if you didn't already know, Koichi has always been capable of flight. It's just that his mother wasn't too keen on the fact that her son could just up and float away. So, she would slap him to make sure that he wouldn't just drift off into space. Meaning, from a young age, he always thought that his quirk was a little bit less than it actually was. And if you want to hear more about Koichi's origins, I encourage you all to click the card above. That way, you can learn about the backstory of the various vigilantes, and you can learn about their quirks a little bit more. Anywho, essentially what I'm getting at is if Koichi took his own apprehensions out of his head and just used his quirk, he would blaze through the skies. And that's what we're getting right here. He's turning himself into a human missile, man. To the point where he's completely forgotten that he was only capable of doing 2 steps in the air before plummeting to the ground. But with the situation at hand, he completely forgets about that limiter. And on that 3rd step, instead of plummeting to the ground, he takes off once again and bursts through the air. So this pretty much just lets me know that if he takes the focus off of his feet and uses his quirk, it doesn't matter anymore. And for all intents and purposes, he may call himself the Crawler right now, but the name is not relevant at all anymore. Because right now, Koichi is a man on a mission. He knows exactly where he needs to be right now, and there is not going to be one thing that stops him from getting there. I mean, when you take out the fact that it took a huge amount of emotional stress for this to happen, it's amazing. All he had to do was focus on what he could control, and he was able to remove that mental limiter that he put on himself. It's almost kind of like when the Flash thinks that he needs to consume a huge amount of calories in order to keep running, but in actuality, it's actually him telling himself that he needs food and inadvertently putting a mental block on himself. From the beginning, he really hasn't had proper training and he's been led in the wrong direction. That's why it took him until the age of 22 to realize that he could actually fly. I mean, look right here. He's literally running through the sky right now with 100% control of his quirk. And what's even more beautiful about this scene is he actually stops to think about how many mid-air jumps that he took, and he just shrugs it off. And the reason why I'm saying that he's not just simply stepping and bouncing is because he was able to redirect his path of motion when Soga flagged him down with a light, letting him know that he was on a building adjacent to the police station. And as he lands in front of Soga, it's time for the final plan to be enacted. Because since Koichi didn't roll up on the police station, number 6 most likely thinks that he's preoccupied with the bomber villains. So Soga flagging down Koichi was actually the appropriate response, because now they get to formulate a plan and get a drop on the villains down below. The thing is, they really have to hurry and consolidate their information and figure out a plan, because it looks like Rapt and Moyu are in for some serious danger, being that the Special Ward is under attack by number 6 himself and the remaining bomber villains of Operation Anonymous. And I gotta say, I love how it's hinted that Knuckle Duster trained all 3 of those boys, because Rapt immediately saw that this was going south, and he's the person that tells the police that we need to fall back into the hospital. And when the police ignore him and start getting blown up, the first thing he says is, "I told you so." And I love the Naruhata boys because they've changed so much from chapter 1 to chapter 101. In chapter 1, they were the villains of the story, and now in chapter 101, we have Moyu and Rapt saving the police. 100 chapters later, they're able to be heroes in their own right. But now that the Special Ward is under attack, it's up in the air for what might actually happen. I mean, they really need Soga and Koichi to come through, or their lives are going to be in serious danger. And the reason why I say it's kind of up in the air is because during the previous arc, it was shown that the person pulling all of the strings behind this was All For One. He's the one who created the mutated trigger, and he's the one who's created number 6. So it kind of makes me wonder if Knuckle Duster is standing by waiting to see if Koichi beats number 6, and that ends up drawing out the big boss. I mean, when he defeated Hood, it was all but certain that All For One was going to show up if All Might didn't show up. Now that All Might is not going to show up, All For One could just, roll up and kill a bunch of people. Now, as for the chapter itself, it felt kind of short because there wasn't a lot of dialogue. This was Betancourt giving us the chance to see what Koichi is actually capable of. And this chapter was just Koichi putting on a show left and right. Because if anything, this chapter showed to all of us that Koichi uses his quirk to the best of his ability. Because if Koichi is able to sustain being mid-air, it's a counter to overclock. So the key to Koichi beating number 6 is keeping him constantly on his toes. Koichi for the most part is able to keep up with number 6, but he's got to stop him from accelerating, and taking him into the sky might be his best best bet. Also, I could totally see number 6 doing a last-ditch effort and suicide bombing to try to take out everyone, only to have Koichi grab him and take him off into the sky. That could definitely be a good way for them to be like, oh, the crawler disappeared after disposing of the villain. But if number 6 gets into the hospital, Koichi's gonna be at a little bit of a disadvantage. So if they can keep this fight outside of the hospital, Koichi definitely has the advantage now. Either way, the next chapter is gonna culminate in Koichi confronting number 6. Now, I don't particularly know if they'll do the typical, hey, let's have a conversation while people are getting hurt right over there, but they kinda started doing that conversation anyway during this chapter, so let's hope that chapter 102 is just the culmination of that conversation and the action after it. Because Soga, for the most part, is a pretty smart guy now, and he's definitely been thinking about a plan to wrap around and come after number 6. You know, just reflecting on number 6 as a villain, Koichi has been tormented by him for the longest time, and this confrontation is such a long time coming. In the beginning of this series, it looked like more or less number 6 was a villain of Knuckle Duster's creation, but as the series progressed, he became more of the arch nemesis of our boy Koichi. As for what's coming in future chapters, well, to me at least, it's all but certain that the cat bus is gonna roll up and mack the rest of Operation Anonymous, leaving number 6 without his bomber villains, followed by number 6 hopefully getting tackled by Koichi and taken out up into the sky. And while this chapter did bid its farewell to Eraserhead, there's still Tsukauchi and Midnight at the hospital, and my guess is they're not outside anymore and they've moved closer to Popstep to become that last line of defense. But theorizing aside, seeing Koichi finally take flight was so worth it. I've been waiting for the moment that Koichi finally just throws away all of his inhibitions and flies since chapter 1, when he pled to the sky that he would be able to fly one day. It's been hinted that Koichi could fly for pretty much 5 years at this point. Hell, at this point, Deku pretty much flew before him consistently. And chapter 101 marks the day that Koichi has become a high flyer, and in some ways might be someone Deku accidentally crashes into midair. Like, if we're able to think about what's going on in My Hero Academia right now real quick, Koichi is definitely out and about during this chaos. So if Deku and Koichi crash into one another midair after thinking that they might be going after a subordinate of All For One, I am totally for it. I mean, Koichi is inadvertently wrapped up in the plot because All For One created number 6. So if number 6 is still around in My Hero Academia, or if he's broken out because of the various jailbreaks around Japan, it's inevitable that the two main characters would eventually meet up. Though I have a feeling that there's no way number 6 is going to be taken alive from this incident, and he's definitely going to try to suicide bomb. Either way, after reading the most recent chapter of My Hero Academia, Deku needs to make new allies, with the kids at UA taking a back seat for a little bit. So I'm ready for Deku to build his team of vigilantes and take down some jailbreakers. So if you have a theory tying Koichi to Deku using the current circumstances in My Hero Academia, be sure to throw it in the comments down below. And make sure you let me know how you felt when you saw Koichi just shrug off the fact that he took 12 steps without realizing it. But other than that, I'm gonna get out of here for now. I'll catch you guys later. Cheers!